Hey friends, hope the morning's treating you well. Hope you got your coffee if you drink it. I got some local stuff and it's really, really good this morning. I was reading an article in Billboard magazine. I think it came out back in February, but it's a John Mellencamp interview, and he's talking about a new record that he's got out. And he said that one of the things he was talking about was how he became friends with Springsteen, or he got to know Springsteen a little bit years ago, like throughout the years. But they did some kind of a rainforest benefit or something with Sting in 2019, and they became like actual friends and kept in touch a little bit. And Mellencamp had a couple songs that he thought would be cool to have Springsteen be part of on the record. So he called him, and Springsteen's like, yeah, sure, man, just tell me when, and I will travel to Indiana, and we will make that happen. So he traveled to Indiana and recorded, I think, on 3 songs on Mellencamp's latest record. And it seems like I remember stories popping up somewhere locally about Mellencamp and Springsteen just showing up somewhere in Bloomington, maybe just going out to eat or going into a coffee shop. Do my Indiana people remember that? It'd be pretty crazy to just be, sitting in a restaurant in Indiana and then walks Springsteen and Mellencamp. But anyways, Mellencamp shared this little part here, this is where it kind of gets good. This is Mellencamp talking in Billboard magazine. Bruce has a wonderful way of having humility and tenacity all at the same time. He says he can get his ideas across with humility and an ability to do what he wants to do. He's run his own band longer than I have, so I don't have to say, hey, Bruce, how about we... he says, how about if I try this? This is Bruce saying to Mellencamp, how about if I try this? And how about if I try that? And he's Bruce Springsteen, so you try it. And this is where we get to the really good part. This is the meat of the article here that caught my eye. This is John Mellencamp in Billboard. It says, it reminded me a little bit of when Bob Dylan used to call me up in the middle of the night and read his lyrics to me that he was working on for new records. Bob Dylan used to call up John Mellencamp in the middle of the night and read him lyrics. You're living right, Mellencamp, you're living right. It says, this is Mellencamp talking, and I finally told him, Bob, would you quit calling me because I'm not going to say anything. I'm not a good sounding board because I love everything you do. I'm happy to hear this stuff, but I'm not that great of a sounding board. And it's the same with Bruce. There's very few guys I ended up admiring musically. Bruce and Bob are definitely 2 of those guys, and I'm happy to say I have a good relationship with both of them. Man, think about that. Bob Dylan calls you up and wants to read you some lyrics to see what you think about it. I guess, Bob's human like anybody. You just think that Bob's the one leading the charge. The rest of us are learning from it and taking it and trying to do our own version of it as the years go by. I have to believe in my little fantasy world that Mellencamp and Dylan would talk painting at some point. That would be interesting. I dig Dylan's paintings, and I really love John Mellencamp's paintings. I think he's a wonderful painter, and really, I think it's really, really cool stuff that I enjoy. There's a big Max Beckman influence on it in a very good way, and maybe he'd be the first to say that. I don't know. Might tell me I'm crazy, and maybe I am, but you can see a lot of the German expressionist stuff in his paintings. And I actually played a gig. I don't remember if I've ever told this story before. Years ago, many years ago, Mellencamp was going to have some kind of a gallery exhibition somewhere in Indianapolis of his paintings, and they had a private opening, like a VIP thing or something, where somebody contacted me from his camp and asked if I would play it. And I knew right then, and they made me an offer on the amount of money. And if you play those sort of gigs, you know, you might be thinking, oh, this is your big break, Otis, or whatever. But I'd been doing this long enough to realize what kind of gig it really was. I was going to be background music. You know, there would be people that just weren't paying attention. Nobody would pay attention. And I'd be background music. And I'd like to go to that party, but I wasn't that excited about being background music. So I raised the price way higher. And got back, and whoever it was on the other side was saying, you know, this is a good opportunity for you, or blah, blah, blah. And it just got back. It's like, you know, that's the price, and if you want me to do it, that's cool. If not, no hard feelings at all. And I didn't hear anything for a little while, and they finally got back. It might have been a week or 2 weeks later or something like that, and they agreed to pay the price. And so I went and did it, and I was completely ignored. Completely. Just background music. One of those moments when you're like, why are you having music at all? You know, it's kind of an annoyance to the audience. But the really cool part is before the thing started, I got to walk around and look at his paintings in person. And, man, they were beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And Mellencamp came walking by once and, like, glanced over at the guy playing music in the corner or whatever, and with some people. But, I mean, people are mingling. It's a party. You know, it's a opening or whatever. And that was that. I think I played for, I don't know, 245s or something like that, and got a nice payday out of it, and a nice story. And it was really great to be able to see those paintings close up. And I remember talking about Dylan's paintings. When I toured with Ian Hunter over in Europe, he would sit around backstage and talk about Bob Dylan's paintings. He absolutely loved Dylan's paintings. And he talked really well. I mean, he would like describe the things he liked about them, the things he saw in them, and would pull them up on his phone. He's like, oh, just look at this, you know, because I was interested in painting and very interested in Ian. And he was just super cool and would show me an example of a Dylan painting that he loved and would say, this is why I love this and that. And it was really, really cool, you know, to have such a talented person and cool person as Ian talking about somebody I've always loved, Dylan, and in a different way about the painting. So I can only imagine the conversations that Mellencamp would have with Dylan about the paintings. Now that I think about it, there's like Ian Hunter and Dylan, didn't they write together? I know Mick Ronson played with both of them. I don't know. You guys might be able to fill in all that stuff. But as I keep going down the Mellencamp rabbit hole, I played a festival last weekend in Seymour, Indiana, and it's Bob Dylan's hometown, and they had a really, really cool mural. And I'm forgetting the name of the artist. I made a video about it and put it in my Patreon thing, and like folks for the Patreon and the channel members made a video around Seymour and showed the mural and talked about it a little bit. But the artist really did a great job on that, and I'll look up the artist and I'll try to put that on the screen here somewhere so I can remember. But she also did, there's a great Kurt Vonnegut mural in downtown Indianapolis. It's a real big one. Looks great. I've put it on social media before. And she also did a really nice Reggie Miller mural. And she's done other ones around Indiana, like in Richmond, forget where else. But those are the three that I've witnessed in person, and they were absolutely beautiful. And the people at Seymour treated me really well. I hadn't played there since the 90s. I played there once, and when people asked me, how did it go, Otis? And I said, well, it took me 30 years to come back, and everybody laughed. But everybody treated me nice. It was a really nice, fun gig, and I met a whole lot of people who watch this channel. If I saw you guys there, let me know down below. It was really nice to see everybody, and people walk up and say nice things to me, and it's not a bad way to go through life. All right, I asked you guys last week to ask me some questions, and I figured I would go ahead and try to answer a few of those right now. Somebody asked me if I ever, this is Marco, do you ever get anxiety before a gig? And if so, how do you calm down? I'm lucky, man. I don't feel nervous. I used to way back when a little bit, like if I felt like I was playing a gig in a situation that I really didn't belong in. Like if I was playing in a restaurant, way back when, and people were eating, and whatever I was going to do was going to really interrupt them. And it just didn't feel like the appropriate place for me to be, but there I was. Those kind of things used to give me a little bit of like, oh gosh, But I wasn't scared or anything. But I've had some pretty crazy moments when I felt like I was about to, it's like, you wonder why you're even going to attempt what you're going to attempt. I think I've told this story before, but I was playing the Larmer Tree Festival in England. It was in Dorset. Beautiful, beautiful area. I mean, really, really beautiful. And I'm standing on the side of the stage. At a festival, I don't know who I'm following, who's playing after me or anything like that. You're just going to play the gig. And I'm standing on the side of the stage, and Chumbawamba is playing. And you guys remember Chumbawamba? I get knocked down and I get up again. They're doing that. It's really high energy, fun, danceable music. And there's at least 5,000 people in this audience, and you've seen like the videos of Rage Against the Machine when the whole audience is all jumping at the same time, and you see like a sea of people doing that. They were doing that. So the audience is singing the I Get Knocked Down, and they're jumping. It's just electric and alive, and I'm standing on the side of the stage thinking, I gotta follow this. Like that's their last song. And it's all, they're done, and the audience is going nuts, and I'm standing on the side of the stage. I'm about ready to get up there with an acoustic guitar and do my little dog and pony show. And if I was younger, I was just sitting there thinking to myself, okay, kid, it's not your day, it's not your day. It's like the old boxers in the old movies. It's not your day, kid. Sometimes you're going to take one on the chin, and then you're going to go on. You get knocked down, you get up again, blah, 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 to use their song. But the band was really, really nice to me. We had a really quick changeover. And when I was younger, I would have been tempted to try to alter the set that I intended on playing to try to be more exciting. But let's be honest, there's only so much excitement that some guy in an acoustic guitar, is going to bring up. And it's like, no, I'm not Chumbawamba, that's not what I do. And if you go and try to be who you're not, that's the worst possible thing. So I went out there and I played the quietest song I could to start it off with. And, finger picking, just like let everything come back down. And I wasn't scared or nervous at all. I remember just kind of like taking a deep breath, taking all of the time I had in between sets. I didn't start early. Wanted to have people forget what had just happened, the fun they just had. Wanted them to forget all of that. But I played the first song, and then I told a story that had a punchline, and everybody laughed. They all laughed. And from then on, it was great. It went great. I honestly thought that I was going to have one of the longest 45 minutes of my life right there, where, following Chumbawamba. But it went great, and the people loved me. I remember seeing on the side of the stage the members of Chumbawamba standing there and like, yay, cheering me on. They were very nice and cool. And the lesson there is just be yourself, man. Just do, hopefully there's something about you that is you. There's like lead with your strongest punch, whatever your thing is. Fail is just, so we all have moments that we fail, and you walk out on stage and it goes terrible, absolutely terrible. We all have those moments. The only time it really sucks is when you're not yourself, Because then you sit back and think, you failed trying to be something that, you weren't. And we all have those moments when we're younger when we try that. I think it's that way in life in general. Just be who you are. And if it doesn't work, man, well, you tried it. You gave it a try. And the good thing about touring, the best thing about touring, it's like baseball. You go strike out 4 times, and then you got to play another game the next day, and you get to go back up to the plate and make it better. And those bad gigs don't last nearly as long, where we all have bad gigs, but if you're only playing once every 2 months around town, that bad gig sticks with you for a long time, and you don't get any opportunities to play a better gig. So you might have 2 bad nights on the road, but then the third night comes up and everything's fine. But if you have anxiety, I don't know that I'm the best person to explain that. I do have moments when I walk out in front of a large crowd and I feel completely calm and normal, and I've looked down and my hand will be shaking a little bit when I go to reach for my water or my coffee or something. And it's really kind of confusing because it's like, but I feel completely calm, but there's something there, we're humans, I guess. But that's part of life, I guess. I don't know if you feel, I think it's probably normal for you to feel worried when you play or scared or something like that, because you feel like people are about to judge you, and they probably are, because that's the nature of some of this. But either don't do it, and I think that's fine if you don't do it. I think a lot more people would be better off if they just didn't do it, and maybe, or just do it more often and try to get past it. That would be my advice. And by not doing it, it doesn't mean that you don't play music at all or whatever, you don't create. It just means maybe there's certain kind of gigs that you just don't really have a legitimate shot at winning, where the cards are stacked against you and nobody's going to pay attention. I used to play gigs years ago that, remember a place we used to play that had a railing across the front of the stage, so you could only see like from, your chest up. And then there were these plants, these big ferns that were hanging across the top of the stage, blocking the views like right here. So you could only see like this much of the people. Bar was on the other end of the room, and there were like big monster truck races on the and car crashes and stuff on a big screen over here, and another big screen over here with like women in bikinis and all of that. So they're like actively doing everything they can to distract people from watching the band or the musician that they've hired to have play. And, and then they'd ask you, I don't know, man, I just don't understand why these bands we have in can't get the people into it. And it's like, why do you even have bands, You're actively trying to get the audience to not pay attention to them. And if you're playing those kind of gigs, maybe it's not your fault that it isn't always going real well, The cards are stacked against you in a lot of gigs, and I don't know. I think I've done more to discourage people with that speech than encourage them, but just saying, it's not always your fault. But if you can see those gigs coming, and after a while I can see a bad gig coming, and I just don't go there. I just don't do it. And try to put yourself in situations where you're more likely to be able to win. It's like, what good is it? Michael Jordan is playing in the minor leagues for the White Sox, and not doing that great, but he's Michael Jordan. It's like, why don't you go pick up a basketball, play the game that you're good at, don't try to, anyway, just do what you're good at and try to find out what you're good at and try to accentuate that in the best way you can. Timothy Carter asked me, do I ever get calls, texts, or emails from people that I've interviewed saying that I've increased their visibility through the fans on here. I wouldn't say it that way, but I definitely get people saying, yeah, man, people have been asking me at gigs, or saying that they saw that happens. And it's really, really cool. Those of you who go on, and somebody who I've had on, go on their social media and mention, hey, I saw you on Otis's channel. If you go to their shows, I saw you through Otis, or when you buy something from their website or whatever, hey, if I saw you, that interview you did with Otis, that's really cool. It lets them know this wasn't wasted time, that there are people out there who appreciate it and all of that. So thank you guys when you do that, and I'd like to encourage more of that. And somebody was a flagrant foul says, who are you wanting to interview that you haven't? And oh God, we'll say Dylan, we'll say Bob Dylan, but the truth is there's just a ton of people, an unbelievable amount of people I'd like to interview that I haven't. But sometimes like somebody said like, hey Otis, why don't you interview Neil Young? It's like, sure, I'll just text Neil and make that happen. And I would like to do something like that, but the truth is maybe Neil's guitar tech would be a better interview, or somebody that was close to Neil, somebody who played in one of his bands or something like that at some time might be a better, I don't know, something like that might be a better interview and more interesting than hearing from Neil himself. But I absolutely love Neil and would love to have him on, so I'm not saying, and I know Neil's watching this, so, hey Neil. David Marvel says, do you have a favorite movie or favorite music movie? Peace and love. Peace and love to you, David. Man, these are the questions I don't really like. At parties, when people ask me what's your favorite movies, like off the top of my head, if I'll say something like, oh gosh, see, here we go. We're gonna get bogged down. I hate these questions because it feels like people feel like they've properly, I don't know, like they've defined you in some way when it has nothing to do with me at all. But I like HUD. I like Wings of Desire. I always go back and forth with Vim Vendors, whether I like Wings of Desire or Paris, Texas more. Just depends on what week you catch me. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I've watched that so many damn times. And, just people don't talk about it. Be able to make somebody laugh is the nicest damn thing you can do. And it's way harder than making somebody cry through art or making them feel like crap and heavy and, all that. If you can actually make somebody laugh without them feeling cheap or, like they don't feel dumb for liking it, that's an unbelievable talent that we don't talk about enough. And it's one thing to depress people and all of that. I don't think that's the hardest thing to do because people are pretty bummed out most of the time anyway. But I don't know. That's my hot take for today. And but yeah, my favorite. I used to say my favorite music documentary was the Rodney Bingenheimer one, the Mayor of the Sunset Strip. I haven't watched that in a long time, so I don't know if it. I've seen a lot since then. I don't know, but I really loved that one. And there's an honesty about that, like the second half of it. It really is how the music world is, and I don't want to spoil anything. But that was one that I really enjoyed at the time, and but I saw that 20 years ago. And there's also a documentary, what was it called? Before the Light Takes Us. It was about the black metal over in Norway, and that was really good. I saw that at the Belcourt Theater, and my buddy So I went and played. I don't remember if I've said this. I played in Bremen, Norway, right after I saw that, and that's where a lot of this took place. And I got picked up at the airport by the promoter, and we're in the car, and he's real quiet, real nice guy. And I'm like, "Hey, man, I saw this documentary about the black metal stuff, and it's kind of neat." And he's being quiet, and after a while, I think he realized that I was just being honest. And like, yeah, I really enjoyed the documentary, but it was a strange, crazy story. And this is the guy promoting my gig. And he's like, yeah, actually, I knew those bands. And I'm like, really? You knew some of those? And he's like, yeah, I produced all of those albums you're talking about. Oh, and his name was Pitten. Really cool, great guy. Really cool guy. But he was just a little bit older than the kids in the black metal bands that changed the world. And that, some of them went to prison. Some of them became elected to public office. Some of them ended up being wonderful citizens, just like everybody else in these scenes and everything. But Pitten was awesome. I had him on my podcast. I hope he's doing good if he's out there. Asking me my favorite. Glenn Dodge is asking me about my favorite foods, my favorite meals, and oh gosh. I'll say it this way. There's a big joke. For years, my buddy Todd will just like roll his eyes when we go have breakfast. And like on the road, this is my go-to breakfast. When I want to go to a diner. I want to go to a locally owned diner that is not fancy or whatever. I want it to be good, but just somewhere indigenous to the area. Partaking things indigenous to the area. That's the prime directive. And I'll get a cheese omelet, some hash browns. I always say you can burn them and I won't be mad at you. And I'd like a couple biscuits. And then I ask about the biscuits. Did you make them here? Are they frozen? Do they come in some pre-made concoction, or is this something you make? And I asked that in the nicest possible way. I actually stopped asking it years ago because they never really are fresh and made there anymore. Because I might get something else if they're just like some frozen thing, or and all the biscuits come from somewhere else now. They're not made there. They weren't like flour that morning and all mixed together and all that. And but I'll ask that, and Todd will just roll his eyes, and it's a big joke between us. But that's my breakfast of choice. Just a cheese omelet, some hash browns, and a couple biscuits, and I'm happy. But it's harder to find that anymore. What else we got? All right, Ish474, who's one of my Patreon supporters, says, who's the person you are friends with that is most surprising to you at this point? My favorite people that you're friends with are Elizabeth Cook, because she's the one that turned me on to you, I guess via Outlaw Country. Gotta love Elizabeth. And Ray Wiley Hubbard, because Ray Wiley Hubbard is cool. And that is true. Nobody's cooler than Ray Wiley Hubbard, except for Judy, his wife, Mrs. Hubbard. She's like as cool as it gets. If you're out there, Judy, much love to you. She's a complete badass who gets up every morning, puts on the gloves, and does a day's work, making sure the crap that needs to be taken care of is taken care of, and she's damn good at it. People don't give some of the people behind the scenes enough credit, but Judy's a good example of somebody. I don't know. They did their thing independent for a long, long time and managed to pay mortgages and all of that, and put kid through school. And I have a lot of respect for Judy and Ray, but love Elizabeth. But back to the question: who's the person you were friends with that is the most surprising to you at this point? Sometimes I wonder why anybody wants anything to do with me, you know? I don't know. I don't know that I don't look at it like that. So that's hard to say. I don't know. It was pretty great when, yeah. I don't have a good answer to that. I don't really know what to say, because I'm tempted to just say something, you know, to like pretend, but I don't know. Once you get to know people are just like regular, you know, I mean, it might be weirdos, but like we know a lot of weirdos that we're friends with, and just every now and then a weirdo just happens to be somebody who sold a lot of records, you know, or is known. And but they're a lot like the other weirdos that you know that nobody's ever heard of. So I don't know. A friend of mine who has met everybody, and I mean everybody, I was trying to have a similar version of this conversation with like, well, who could you meet that you really like? There's a very short list of people who might walk in the room that you go, oh my God, that's such and such, where it's a big deal. And he was just like, no, I never look at anybody like that. I kind of believe it, but I still have a short list. Like I was trying to think of if Paul McCartney walked in the room and walked by, and you'd be kind of like, wow, that's Paul McCartney. You know, you used to feel that way about Johnny Cash if he would walk in or something. Just somebody that is just a larger than life figure. I think maybe Loretta Lynn. I was trying to think of folks. Of course, Dylan. I feel bad for Dylan because he just wants to blend in and live his life, you know, but it's like, damn, that's Bob Dylan, you know. So who were your versions of that? Like, who are the people that would you just be like, I can't believe? And you might not, I'm not saying you'd say anything to them at all or ever meet them, but you'd be, for me, it would be mostly because like, wow, that person was the person my parents looked up to, you know, like we listened to them when I was a little kid, and then I grew up, and then right there they are standing next to me. So I remember I always loved Rod Stewart's stuff. I love the Faces to this day, love it, and love them. And I stood next to Rod Stewart backstage at Bridgestone Arena a few years ago. My friend Julie got us back there. He works for him. And he's just like right here. And I never said a word. I didn't turn around and look or anything. Just let him be. And he's just there living his life. And if you would have told me that years ago, I'd have been like, hey, Rod, you know. But I didn't really, I cared. I definitely cared. But it was just kind of like, no, I'm lucky to be back here. And I'm back here because I won't bother him. You know, I was invited back because somebody trusted me that I wouldn't bother him, and I'm just going to stand here and talk to my friend. You know, I think you got to look at it like that sometimes. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm whiffing on some of these. Let's see. Devin Fulton, who's part of the channel members here, Devin says, were you in Stoner Drug in Hamburg, Iowa during that last trip, or was that pic from earlier in history? That pic was from, was it last fall that I was out there with Todd Snyder? It was from then. And I probably shared that like on Instagram or something, and then I just shared it here on the YouTube channel. There's a community page where I've been trying to share some photos every now and then. Some of you might have seen those. And I think I shared that a week or two ago. So that was from then. Hey guys, my camera just overheated and shut off. I don't know where it cut off at. I've been talking for a long time. The camera's in the sun and it overheated. First time it's ever done that. I'm worried about it, so I'm going to stop talking and move on. But I hope things are good with you guys. If you didn't see the Little Miss Cornshucks video from yesterday, the most influential singer that you've never heard of, please watch that. I think it's one of the high water marks for this channel, and it's a really, really good stuff. And I hope you guys enjoy that and see it. But I'll talk to you guys soon. Much love to you.